Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Ramsey with Empire Life Podcast, and we talk to entrepreneurs from all around the world who are building their empires online. And we also help entrepreneurs to build their empires online. We're with Judy Tsuei today, and she is a word stylist and PR strategist. She has her own company, and she also is on our company team for the ad copy and professional writer. She's amazing, brilliant, and I'll hand it over to her to introduce herself more.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Allison and I met, I think online first. It wasn't a dating site. But we were just like, yeah, you came to my radio group that I was hosting here, and we connected, and since then I've built this awesome friendship, and I'm so, so grateful for having her in my life. I work with wild-hearted female entrepreneurs. My company's name is Wild Hearted Words. I even have it like tattooed right here, wild and free. And I help you make your story beautiful and get seen. And I take a really soulful approach to everything so that you can work happier rather than harder.
Perfect. And I want to hop right into this, Judy, because you have dive deep. You have so many juiciness, so much juiciness and gold nuggets to share with everybody. So a lot of our tribe comes from being overachievers. Either now, they already are. Like when I first launched my company, I was pulling sometimes 2 to 3 all-nighters a week. I tend to, from a young age, have been an overachiever and perfectionist. I also grew up in a very emotionally repressed family that we didn't really express our emotions, and if we did, it was very like slanderous or not really welcome or kind of taboo. And I understand, we really resonate on that, and I'm sure a lot of the tribe connects with that and the way that you grew up. How did you move forward through these?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for most of us, we likely have parents who did the best that they could, but did not raise us in the ways that we would have liked to have been raised. And so my parents were immigrants, and they were very, very traditionally Chinese, and I'm the first out of 4. So I really had the role of bridging those 2 cultures and then also navigating America, essentially, because my parents had never been here before. So this was a new, exciting thing. And so a lot of it was going through a lot of resentment and a lot of anger. I'm not going to lie, there was a lot of that. I took a lot of kickboxing classes and had to beat the crap out of certain objects a lot to get through that anger because I wasn't taught a healthy way to deal with that. So once I moved through that, I found yoga, and I found my own path to believing in something greater than myself, which at first started out just as Mother Nature. I love the ocean. It always takes my breath away. I love surfing. And then it just continued to deepen and evolve from there. But I think that I call myself a recovering perfectionist because I still have tendencies where I am very hard on myself, and I still like to make things like the best that they can be. But I think also, you and I are both moms, and it's so valuable for me to teach my daughter by example and show her a different way of existing. So I think that there have been so many growth opportunities along the way, and a lot of ways that I've had to heal, and from that healing came a lot of thriving and a lot of compassion and empathy, and really learning that my sensitivity isn't a drawback or a fault, but it's actually something that can be so useful in business because, it allows you to deepen your intuition and all of these amazing, magnificent gifts that women especially have, wild women.
Yeah, that's right. And at Empire Life, the same. We attract a lot of conscious entrepreneurs, or that's who we're working with. That's who we want to work with. This the aware and consciousness, and that also leads me to you. You were mentioning to me in another conversation about how you use your intuition to kind of navigate when is a good time to bring something up to a client. And can you expand on that a little bit more? That is so juicy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Growing up in that environment where I felt like it was going to be World War III between my parents at any time. I mean, we definitely had like the neighbors come knocking on our door at like 2 a.m. being like, are you guys okay? Like, what's going on? Because they just hear my parents fighting and raging against each other. And so at 10 years old, I had to open the door to see my gray-haired neighbor in like his pajamas and lie and just say like, everything's fine, it's okay. So, you know, I took all of that learning how to navigate the minefields and then turn it into something really positive, where now I can gauge someone's, you know, vulnerable points. I can gauge where they're strong and where they would like to grow into. And I'm able to communicate with them in a way where they're actually going to hear me because they feel safe with me, that I can hold that space. And so when I was young, that wasn't something that I was adept at holding. Like I didn't have the capacity to fend for myself and then for someone else. But after doing all of this work, you know, it's made me so much of a stronger person that now I can provide that grounding or that opportunity for inspiration or confidence for someone else. And that's become so rewarding. So I think in all of our lives, we have these opportunities where we could really go down the rabbit hole and fall into a deep, deep, dark place, or we can transmute it and transform it into something that can actually benefit our lives in such substantial ways.
Wow, I love that. That is such a gift.
Yeah. And it's all a matter of perspective. I mean, like doing PR and a PR strategist, like so much of it is just seeing the same exact thing from a different angle and then being able to communicate from that angle and being able to know, like, this is my target audience who I'm looking to talk to. These are the messages that they're going to want to hear. Here's how I'm going to do it. And it's not being untrue to yourself. It's just seeing something from a different angle.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're going to be speaking at Empire Life Buenos Aires in July.
Yes, I'm so excited. We got our daughter's passport, so I'm excited to like get some stamps going on that thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that leads me to you're going to be focusing there with the tribe a lot about storytelling. Mm-hmm. And it's super confusing sometimes as an entrepreneur to know, okay, which exact points do I talk about when I'm storytelling? Yeah. It's easy to ramble on and on. You're losing people as you're rambling, or you don't even realize you're rambling, or it's easy to go to the other side and like not say enough. And then people DM me frequently, like, I want to hear more about your personal story. And I'm like what? What do you mean? I don't really know, like even sometimes where to start or what exactly to share. Yeah. And then even what are the benefits of this and being vulnerable? So I wanted to touch on the question, how, like, what do you do with your clients and serving our team also with the female entrepreneurs to help write their story? Like, where do you even start?
Well, I mean, the first thing that I like to start with is understanding each individual person and like how willing are they to share? Because I don't mean that like every person should get out there and be like, here's my dirty laundry and check it out. Because that's not everyone's jam. For me, I'm very comfortable being very like honest, genuine, and authentic in that sharing. But for other people, that's not them, and that's totally fine. What people are seeking is that journey to transformation. However, I do feel like in the online world a lot, it's become these like stories of dramatic, like, I was homeless and then now I'm like, you know, a 7-figure earner and like that kind of stuff. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the real, honest, authentic truth where, for example, you don't have to share like about your personal life, but you can share an anecdote or a scene that demonstrates the thing that you're trying to convey. So like, you know, maybe you were struggling to find your purpose and then all of a sudden you went to a workshop and then that led you to the next thing. And then that brought you to where you are now, which doesn't necessarily reveal all these personal details, but it does reveal who you are as a person, how you approach life, you know, the journey that you took and the transformation that your clients are looking for. So I like to really work with people so they have like a core story and they understand their own heroine's journey. And when I say their own, I mean like owning your own story. And then from there, allowing the client that you're working with to find their own ideal heroine's journey and identify themselves in elements of your story. And I think that that's so amazing because as you and I talked about before we jumped on this interview, you know, when people meet you for the first time, what they're seeking is your vulnerability. But that's the last thing that any of us ever really want to share with anyone because we think like, no, like that's too scary and it's not going to be okay. I'm not going to be accepted. So I always think it's funny because we're just this like mass humanity of people who are just like missing the boat with each other. Like, I just want to connect. And we all want the same thing. So if you can find that, you know, your core theme, or 1 to 2, at most 3 themes, and you can keep coming back to that and showing different scenes in your life or work that you've done with your clients that demonstrate that, then you're telling these beautiful stories that people are going to remember. And stories are how we operate. I mean, if you think about it,
oh yeah,
from the beginning of time, yeah, our brains are programmed to remember stories. So like, think about, you know, you can recall an experience and tell someone a story, and that you'll remember that retelling. But if you told me a bunch of facts, I would be like, okay, I think that they said this and I can't really remember this, because emotions sell and facts tell. So I like that little saying.
yeah, I love that. And you also said, and this is totally your quote, so I'm not going to quote this myself, that alignment before action.
Yeah, and I actually heard that recently. I'm a crazy podcast fiend, so I have like over 1,000 something hours of listening on my Stitcher app, and that doesn't even include like the audiobooks that I like love to listen to. But I like alignment before action because it's about getting right within yourself and finding your core truths and being able to show up in that way. And when you are in that alignment, I mean, we've all experienced flow. Athletes experience being in the zone, like that kind of flow. You know, flow when you're like, wow, everything today is just working out perfectly. And so like when you're in that aligned state, and then you come from that space into your business, then you're able to work happier rather than harder, because things just kind of like work out, and like you can attract things rather than like hustling, which our culture and our society really values. Like, you know, doesn't really value magic.
like a balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there does need to be some hustle, though. It's like, if you just feel like I'm in the struggle, like you were saying, and you're like, why am I always struggling?
Yeah,
It needs
totally.
to be balance.
Yeah.
And so once you've gotten to those 3 core aspects, or like someone's essence, and I love that. Why is this so important for female entrepreneurs, or for any entrepreneurs, to be storytelling? Like, what do they personally even get out of it? Like, why is this important?
Well, I mean, from a branding perspective, telling your own story. I used to be a yoga teacher. Well, technically I still am. I just used to teach a lot more yoga than I do now. And every time I teach a class, I say that, you know, from the beginning of time, ever after, there will never, ever be another you. So you and your body and your experiences, your interpretation of the world, that's all super unique. So as long as you just show up as you, uniquely you, you will be differentiated from any of your competition, anybody else online. And your tribe will find you because they're going to resonate with you and your story. But if you're showing up the ways that you think you're supposed to be showing up, then your tribe can't find you, because they're not going to be resonating with that person that you're imagining you have to be. And so it's easy to differentiate yourself by being, you know, honest. It forms that emotional connection, which at the end of the day, you know, you were present in the podcast or the interview that I did in my Facebook group with the relationship alchemists. And we were talking about how essential relationships are in business, because no matter what kind of business you run, and whether you do it online, in person, you know, remotely, whatever it is, you are going to be working with people or with relationships. Like, even if you were to work with widgets or whatever, you still have to work with like the people who run the supply chain and like things like that. So relationships always come into play, and emotions and that storytelling from a genuine place creates that connection that forms that relationship that allows you to build a business that'll thrive for life.
Yes, and I love how you were saying the world is hungry for this level of authenticity and vulnerability.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
being brave and bold, like you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, in the online world, there's a recent New York Times bestseller, and it's called "What Made Maddie Run." And I listened to it. It was a story about an all-American teen girl who's 19. She went to UPenn. She committed suicide, unfortunately.
Wow.
And the author was an ESPNW commentator. So she started with an article and then turned into a book, and she explored like what happened with this girl, you know, who in all of social media looked like she was doing great. And so what she commented on with like social media is that we are in this space where we're trying to make ourselves a brand that looks like it has a magazine life. And so no one's showing up authentically. So we're hungry, like you said, like craving this reality that no one is willing to, share. And so if you are willing to be brave and to be bold and to show up as yourself, you will be so noticeable, and you'll be polarizing, which can be really scary at first because you're saying the thing that other people don't want to say.
Yeah.
You will attract the people who are so devoted to you that like they'll invest in everything that you offer. And at the end of the day, you can search on Google, like I think it's 1,000 raving fans or something like that, but like you don't need the whole world to love you. You need like 1,000 people who are really into you, and you'll be fine. Like your business, your revenue will be fine.
They refer other people to you.
Yeah, exactly.
The chain just continuing, and then you're like, wow, they know this person, and then we're so connected. And that seems to be happening for us too. It's like, or like the people that you interviewed today, I didn't even realize that I had actually met them in person before.
Exactly.
It's like, wow, of course she resonates with them. I resonate with her, and we're all like on the same frequency, and
exactly
this alchemy, like they were talking about. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the next question. When you're being bold and brave, and you possibly even unaware that it may be polarizing, and people may drop off that were once following you as you become more clear in your vision, how do you not take that personally, especially being an overachiever and you're like, well, but I really felt like I was connected to this person, and then they no longer are really resonating with me, but there's these other 5 people over here that are super resonating with me. How do I not take this one person's like a slap in the face? How do I not take that personally?
Yeah, and I totally get it. I mean, like, I look at my mailing list and sometimes I see like the unsubscribes. I'm like, why? But like, then I realize that it's making space for the people who really do need it.
Making space.
Yeah, and that helps. And also I think not beating yourself up, because you're human at the end of the day. Like, it's okay to take things personally. It's just not necessarily okay if you're dwelling in it and it's dragging you down. That's like the part where it starts to be detrimental rather than just allowing. So if you just allow yourself to be human and you say like, okay, one of my favorite sayings that I heard in a yoga class one time was, you might not be responsible for your first thought, but you're definitely responsible for your next one. So like your knee-jerk reaction might be, oh, like I'm taking this personally, what's wrong? But then the next thought that you have is the choice that you get to make of like, okay, so what do I do with that now? Like, I'll give myself 15 minutes to feel crappy about it, and then I'm going to go for a walk. Or, no, I'm not going to feel crappy about it because now I know that it's made space for something else. However you are in that moment, it's always going to shift and change. But, like trying to shift it so that your perspective, again, going back to that perspective, you can just take a different angle on
it. I love that. It's amazing. So before we hop off, and this has been so great to have you and such an opportunity to talk with you more, as always. Which gold nuggets will you love to share with the tribe before we hop off?
I was thinking about it earlier when you and I were talking. And I always feel like I try to trust whatever inspiration is coming through at the moment. But I think that allowing yourself to trust that this is a journey and that life is an upward moving spiral. So I liked understanding, because there was this one time where, I was a travel writer for a while, which yes, sounds and is as amazing as everybody thinks that it is. It was really amazing. And then I met this book editor at this retreat in Mexico, and she and I formed this great connection. She's like, send me your manuscript, because I mentioned that I wanted to write a book, and I told her what the topic was. And she was getting promoted at the time on all of the major news, channels. She had all of these like connections in New York. So I had this opportunity that fell into my lap that people would like, fight tooth and nail for it, but I wasn't ready. And like, my manuscript wasn't ready. I wasn't ready as a person to like put out that story and all of this. So you can bet that I like beat myself up about that afterwards, and I was feeling like, pretty bad about it. And then I realized, wait a minute, one of my favorite like teachings, and I don't even remember where I learned this from, but that life is an upward moving spiral. So it will continue. If you're meant to have this experience, you'll come around it again, and it might not look like the same exact experience, but it will be similar, and whatever you're meant to get out of it, you'll get out of it, and it will be even more refined and even better because you've arrived as like a more evolved person, as a more, conscious individual. And so that helped me like remove beating myself up over everything, and it helped me understand like, nope, I'm going to trust that, like, if it's meant to be, it'll come back again. And so I'm grateful that I didn't give her the manuscript that I had thought about writing, because I'm a totally different person. To have that out there, I'd be like, oh no. And so now I'm grateful because now I have a different understanding. And so, when I do write that book, it's going to be a different story, and it's going to be a much better story because of it.
I love that. I love that. That is super juicy.
Thank you. I love that you use juicy.
So when it comes to everything you're saying, I'm like, ooh, that's so flowing. That makes sense. Like, I really resonate with that. And I've had similar experiences that it's so hard to let go of that opportunity. That, like, this amazing person came into your life and offered this to you, or for me. And I had to say, I'm just not ready right now. I'm going to have to say no, like exactly like what you were saying. And then trusting in the universe that something will be coming around again that I'm supposed to be part of.
And I like what you said right there, like going back to that perfection idea. So I dabbled in a lot of things. So for a little while, I was making some jewelry. And there's this aesthetic in Japanese culture called wabi-sabi, which is all about the imperfections of things. And they believe that the imperfections of things are what make things beautiful. So like when they're making a pot, like a vase, and there's like a little crack or a little divot, it's that gives it the most beautiful aesthetic. It's not the fact that it's completely pristine. And so I think that if we can kind of look at ourselves as these gorgeous creations, and it's like the imperfections that allow us to find that beauty. I always say that, life may not be pretty all the time, but it is indeed beautiful. And there is a distinction there. So I always tell people, go make your story beautiful.
Yes, I love that, Judy.
Yeah, thank you.
So also when we launch, or we'll be putting the way to contact you and your site and everything, so you guys can.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And for Empire Life coming up.
Yes. Come.
Or live. Yeah, come play.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the time today. And thank you everyone for watching or listening.
Thank you.